My name is Eric Jolly. I'm president and CEO of the St. Paul and Minnesota Foundation. We're a community foundation, and that means we get to work with donors and with passionate nonprofit leaders come together to change the world, our world. And these relationships give us a window into tremendous acts of generosity, inspiration, courage, and love. Every day, from small towns to large cities, we're seeing people, individuals, and communities coming together to create an equitable, just, vibrant Minnesota where all communities and people thrive. In this present moment, we'd like to share these stories with you. Joining me today is Thao-Urabe, and she's the director of CAAL. I'm going to ask Bo to take a moment to introduce yourself and also tell us a little about CAAL.
Thank you, Dr. Jolly. My name is Thao-Urabe, and I'm the executive director for the Coalition of Asian American Leaders. We are a social justice network that brings together Asian leaders from across sectors, ethnicities, and age groups to harness our collective power to improve the lives of community across Minnesota.
How has the pandemic affected the community you work with, and what are some of the creative ways you're trying to solve that?
Well, I feel like that's a hard and an easy question at the same time, right? The easy response is that like every community, it is impacting every person in the Asian Minnesotan community. And what is specific is that it has really exacerbated the inequities for certain segments of the community, in particular, those who are limited English, those who live in large multi-generational households and are low income, parents and entrepreneurs who have limited or low tech fluency. They're really having a hard time. And then micro businesses and then also just this environment where there has been an increase in anti-Asian sentiments has made it hard for a lot of people to feel like they are safe, just doing even the basic things that they need to do to take care of their families. So that's how it is impacting the community, and we've been listening and hearing a lot about what that looks like. The community is very good at taking care of itself because it comes from, cultures that are mostly collective in nature, and we are seeing all of that come into play. So the creative ways in which people are taking care of each other include things like creating mutual aid funds, include things like using art and culture to ground us in this moment, to remind us that we have had histories of going through really tough things and that we are strong and resilient.
CAAL was a recipient recently of funding from the Minnesota Disaster Recovery Fund, a response of multiple foundations for collective impact that's managed here at the St. Paul and Minnesota Foundation. What are you using that funding for to help your community? How is it going to have impact?
Yeah, that was a great gift for us in our work in our community. We are doing a number of things with those resources to provide relief for the community, including supporting leaders who are using their skills, expertise, and influence to address an urgent needs. So we've been giving individual funds to support Black, Indigenous, Latinx, Asian leaders who are really using their skills and expertise. And so those kinds of projects include things like, providing the services of doula to women who are pregnant now. We supported a Native leader in Minneapolis to really make sure that there was a health cart for the homeless population. We supported a 13-year-old who was making masks for her community and things like that. So we're doing that. We also created a fund to support specifically Asian Minnesotan nonprofits who are on the front lines of providing language and navigation services to support people who are unemployed or who are needing to get help for their families, but they need support to be able to access things like unemployment or even to apply for small business loans, because even though people are business owners, it doesn't mean that they understand how to navigate the system to access support. So we've provided funding to those organizations to do that work. We're also creating a mutual aid network so that as people have offerings or have needs, they're able to post it so that we are able to help each other find help in support in this time.
That's amazing. I mean, you're doing everything from a single child who has a hope to change the world by sewing that mask that will save a life, to providing a health cart in a community that otherwise doesn't see access to health services at all. Do you have a story around any of this that just warms your heart and gives you hope?
Yes, there's been so many stories, and I think listening to the community is really what gives me hope about how we're going to get through this. And so a young leader who is a part of our youth leadership program, her name is Annie Moa. She's a senior in the Minneapolis Public Schools, and in this moment, she's taking care of her 8 siblings, her 8 younger siblings, and her mom is an essential worker, so she has to go to work. And so it's Annie's job to wake up, take care of all of her siblings, and then to also get to her studies so that she can graduate this year. And she is just so positive about her future, but also a truth teller, right? She doesn't try to hide the fact that distance learning is not working for people like her, and that it is very difficult. And I think her ability to give truth to what is happening in her own situation makes it easier for other parents and students to be able to do the same. But also she's very positive, and she's using her art form like songwriting or singing to also give hope for other students. And so it's just been incredible to watch how she is navigating all of this and doing it the best way that she can, but also working with all of us and recognizing that she's not in it alone, but also by her telling the truth about what is happening, it allows for those who are in positions of power to both know what it looks like for students, what it looks like for low-income families, what it looks like for families who are really taking care of each other. And I think in her story, I see the resilience, I see the strength, but I also see where systems can do better and what it is that we can all do to help uplift her story and to support her in her family.
Just a phenomenal example for you to share with us. You alluded to some of the racism that CAAL is seeing on the rise. Could you talk a little more about what that is and where you see a need for community response?
Yeah, I think, unfortunately, we are part of a community that has experienced this throughout the U.S. history, that in times of crisis, there have been particular communities who have been targeted, and Asian Americans are no strangers to that. So we have a history of understanding what it is like to be targeted. In light of COVID-19 and some of our very top leaders in this country using language that stigmatizes the community, makes the community a target. And that in itself has led to then an increase in interpersonal violence. So I think those are the concerns that the community has, both about the interpersonal safety, the ability to care for themselves and their families, but also what it could mean in terms of policy and targeting through policy. And so, we are really working on that broad spectrum with the community to make sure that people know that what happens to them matters. And we were able to then work with the Department of Human Rights to establish a helpline so that anybody who witnesses or experiences discrimination based on their identity, Asian identity, should call in those incidents.
Thank you. You and CAAL and so many others that you work with are doing incredibly important and powerful work for our community. Can you tell us more? How can people support your work in the community? What can we do for you?
Well, I so appreciate the opportunity today, Dr. Jolly, because I think one of the things that we always ask for is to make sure that as we talk about what is happening in our communities, that we also include the Asian community. I think sometimes we tend to talk about sufferings and then it becomes a race to the bottom, right? We talk about the worst and we talk about the best, and Asian Americans in this state as a whole is very diverse. And so that means a lot of our statistics are somewhere in the middle. And that means that it's a population that sometimes is invisible. So I really appreciate the opportunity to share the experience that we are having with community, but also hope that as people talk about what is happening to Minnesotans, that they include the stories of Asian Minnesotans. I think the other thing is to continue to ask for inclusive data to make sure that we look at specific communities and that we include all communities. And then lastly, of course, we welcome any financial support as people are going through this. I know that it's an ask from every organization. So for us as well, as we are putting together our work and are continuing to support the community to be able to respond to the moment, but to also to make sure that we have infrastructure and capabilities to move through this and can recover and rebuild stronger communities.
Wonderful. Minnesota is an incredibly generous community, and letting people know where their generosity can leverage the most good is one of the important things that our foundation can do for our donors and for all of our community members. So I appreciate your time on this. Thank you so much for your leadership in our community, for your friendship. It has been such a pleasure to work with you, and thank you for joining us in this present moment. Thank you so much.
Thank you.